Hello, welcome back to Spotlight by the Intelligence. Today I have with me Mark, aka Anomaly. How you doing, Chief?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. It's a Friday evening. I'm entertaining some company later. We got a busy weekend planned. What about you? You got things coming up?
Just some shows coming up here in June, and so I'm just kind of working really hard to come up with something cool for those shows. But other than that, that's about it. Just working on music.
I saw a sneak peek of it the other day. I'm really excited to get into it a little bit. But what I'd like to do is give you a chance to introduce yourself and talk about maybe your background, who you are, and what you do. What is Anomaly?
Yeah. So I am Anomaly. I'm a bass producer, mostly mid-tempo music. So think of like REZZ, Death Pack, 1788L, Blanks, Slews, Cyberself. All those guys kind of are in my wheelhouse, and yeah, and I just try to make the craziest, heaviest music I could possibly make.
So, when you say craziest, heaviest, and mid-tempo specifically, could you describe for people who might not be familiar with the genre what the trademark of that type of music is?
Yeah, so mid tempo is more. It is a type of dubstep, but it's definitely slower. So mid tempo comes from like the lower tempo range, typically like 80 to 115 BPM, somewhere around there. And it's been popularized by Gesaffelstein, who is famous for like industrial sort of sounds. And then obviously REZZ is probably like the queen of mid tempo right now at the top of the game. She really popularized it just by adding, kind of horror elements, really hypnotic kind of vibes. And then 1788L kind of brought a I want to say cyberpunk sort of twist on it. It also comes from like synthwave, new wave, like that kind of 80s retro style sound.
So, I agree. I've seen a lot of res, and I feel like mid-tempo didn't really get put on the map until after that generation of artists started to really make it big. And I feel like they kind of pioneered it as a staple of the EDM scene. I want to know specifically though, what drew you to that and made you decide that that was going to be what you were producing.
Yeah, so when I was first getting into the whole EDM scene, going to raves and all that stuff, I didn't know any of the genres. I knew of house and I knew of dubstep, and from what I saw, that was like at every rave. So that's what I thought the two genres were. I didn't know that there was like a whole wide open world with different things. And I was at a rave with my girlfriend. I think, gosh, it was probably like 6 or 7 years ago, and she really wanted to go see some artist named REZZ, and I was like, "Who's that guy?" No idea who REZZ was. And we go into the crowd, and I see REZZ comes on, and it's like some chick, and she has the glasses, and then you see the spiral and everything kind of appear behind her, and I was like, "What is about to happen right now?" And her set blew me away because it was so different. Because again, all I knew was like either house or dubstep, and then this was something that was completely new, at least from my perspective. And this was when I was getting into music production, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want to figure out how to make it. I thought it was so cool.
So, in other words, I'm getting that seeing res and the production behind it was a transformative experience, right? Something that gave it a, I feel like showed you the depth of just what can be done with different subgenres and stuff like that. So when you decided to start making the music, how did you go about doing it?
Um, Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing at first. I was very much a novice producer, maybe been doing it 6 months to a year. And I had no idea how to sound design, had no idea how to make those bases. But I was pretty determined. And so I basically just kind of went on a deep dive to figure out what res was and discovered like mid tempo. And then I started to find other artists like on Spotify and then of course going to YouTube and trying to find as many tutorials as I can. And then I found out that mid tempo is kind of a niche genre and there's not too many tutorials on the subject. But then there's people like Excellent Sound who also happen to really love mid-tempo, and they came out with like a whole thing about it and released the sample pack, and so that really helped get me like started, I guess. But it was really just listening to a lot of REZZ, taking a lot of her songs, throwing it into my DAW and dissecting it and trying to figure out like how to do it specifically. And yeah, it was just a really long journey of me just trying to find out as much information as I possibly could on it.
So you're doing your research and trying to figure out how to recreate the genre, right? And you said something that stuck out to me because I am a big fan of this technique. I call it honestly like aggressive templating, which is just so far as to say is like pulling a song that you're heavily inspired by into the project, recreating it almost piece by piece until eventually you're like, okay, I can't rip the song off. I'm going to give it a life of its own, and it takes its own direction from there, right? And I feel like that technique, I don't know if it's frowned upon, right? But like some of my best work started as me trying to recreate and influence this song like almost verbatim. And then once I had the structure down, I was like, okay, how can I make this mine? Right. So with that in mind, I'm getting like a little bit of a touch of that in your technique. So as you're dissecting a REZZ song, how do you begin to put your own spin on it?
I pretty much just listen to, I guess, the main part that I like. I actually try not to listen to the entirety of the song because I get really hung up on it. And then I have a problem where I do try to recreate it exactly as REZZ or whoever's track I'm listening to that I threw into Ableton. And so I'm only listening to certain like seconds at a time, like certain basses or whatever, and trying to redesign it in Serum just to at least get kind of like in a ballpark of whatever the sound is. Um, Honestly, though, it's gotten to a point because I hyperfixate so much on the sound design of other artists that I will only, if I'm using a reference track now, I only try to listen to maybe 15, 20 seconds of it and just get it in my head as much as possible. And then I try to write what I'm hearing in my head rather than listening, to that artist's track in a loop. And then what I've discovered by doing that is not only does that kind of give me like the jumping off point to create a track, but now I don't have like an actual reference. I'm purely going off of my memory. And therefore, even though the foundation may have started off the same, it 100% of the time becomes something completely original. Um, and something that I probably would not have otherwise made if I hadn't been thinking of that song.
No, I like it. It reminds me of, have you ever seen that social media content where people will like try and draw easily recognizable things from memory and they turn out completely different? It's almost like you are screening for the vibe, the aura or energy of the song, and then using that, taking that inspiration to go do your own thing with it. I want to kind of like do a little bit of a deeper dive, right? So there's obviously a lot has changed between the YouTube University days of early research based upon what you're putting out now. Like I've seen and attended Anomaly sets. They are 100% original. You could fill out an entire hour-long set with your own music that you produced, and it's very consistent. It has like the branding and the style locked in, which I really respect because when I produce music, I'm all over the place. So I guess what I'm curious is about is what happened between then and now that helped you really dial in the brand of Anomaly.
Well, it was just again years of just really dissecting this like one specific genre. Obviously, I have other influences like Subtronics is a huge influence on me as well, even though I don't produce that type of music. Um, so it's kind of an accumulation of things. Even bands back in the day like North Lane, um, Born of Osiris, things like that. They all kind of have their own little influences sprinkled in throughout my music. So it's just like years of just different things that I really like. And obviously, because I've gotten a lot better and I've been doing this for almost 8 years, I have like a pretty clear idea and vision of like what I want and where I want to go with it. And so for everything to be consistent, I think that makes sense because like I said, I am trying to world build. I am trying to create something that is unique, even though, this type of music has been done before. I'm a mass DJ. That's not original, but I'm definitely trying to make it an anomaly set and have it very obviously be an anomaly set. And for people who may not know me, it's like you can come and see me and you can see the mask and you'll know, oh, this is anomaly and this is different. And I've had people tell me that uh, this is different. There's something about it that's different, and it's something that they appreciate.
A note I was gonna say with the references to like previous bands like Born of Osiris, I would say the like metal fan to bass music producer pipeline is so strong. Like I feel like I come from the same background, and I like took a lot of my early like All That Remains fanboyism into like some of the dubstep I produced. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. You talked about the mask. How did that become a part of the Anomaly image?
Yeah, so kind of a long story, but it's a kind of a funny one, I guess. Basically, I used to DJ without a mask. Like I had a different alias, and I was trying to do something else entirely. But I would DJ, and I felt very awkward being up there, just with people staring at you because you're just the only person on the decks. And like it's weird. I used to be in a band, and we'd all get stage fright, but we'd all go up there together as a band, as like a unit, and we would all do it together. But as a DJ, you're just by yourself. And so anyway, I just felt very awkward with people staring at me. And I have one DJ friend who recommended that I wear sunglasses when I DJ, and so I started doing that because that helped kind of block people out, helped like hide my eyes or whatever. But I still felt kind of like awkward, and I didn't really, under my last alias, I didn't really have a clear vision or like strong branding of what I actually wanted. And I ran into, or not ran into, but I discovered an artist on Spotify. His name is Cyberself. So shout out Cyberself if you're listening. Um, his brand is, I want to say, similar to mine. It's basically like he's an android, right? So he also wears a mask, but his is more of like a cyberpunk, like henya, like a Japanese henya mask with like a android kind of robot theme or whatever spin to it. And him and I are good friends. I talk to him every once in a while, but I reached out to him and I said, like, how did you uh, design your mask? And he told me how he did it. He hired a graphic artist. He bought a 3D printer. He gave me a lot of tips and tricks on how to um, visualize it or like to get everything together. And I asked him, I said, hey, I have this idea. It's called Anomaly. But I don't want to be ripping you off, and I want to get your like opinion on this. And he gave me his blessing. He thought it was a cool idea, and with his blessing, I went and did exactly what he told me. I found a graphic artist, gave her kind of a rough idea of what I wanted, some references as well, and she was able to 3D render something for me. And then I was able to take that and get it 3D printed, and then I spent the summer of 2024. Um, yeah, I think it was 24. Just sanding and started painting and trying to figure out how to get LEDs and lights and all that stuff into the mask.
It's I don't think that you are ripping off anyone's style by opting for the masked DJ look, right? Like we've got like Dead Mouse, Barely Alive, like all of these reference points for guys who choose to make like the, like not to compare you to like Marshmello or any of the other existing DJs, but I think it absolutely is like a trend, which is not to say that you are not being unique with it. More just so I feel like what I have come to appreciate about it as a person who's done live performances is like I absolutely get the stage fright and the awkwardness of people looking at you, right? So like by opting for the masked outlook, you if that helps remediate a solution with your capabilities to perform while giving you a specific image that's consistent throughout your sets, I feel like it's kind of like a 2-for-1 win. You understand where I'm coming from, right? It's like
Yeah.
faces change, but the mask is timeless. It goes through updates and stuff, but it becomes a signature move. And I think that so many other big names have seen success with that tactic, that I like that you adopted something that worked and cultivated it. It sounds like you put in personal curating work with the updating, painting, and digitizing of the mask itself. It's like you sounded very, very invested in the project. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, absolutely, absolutely invested.
So, if we could move beyond the mask into the computer a little bit, right? So, you talked about world building, and I saw a taste of that for myself fairly recently. Like, how would you describe world building, and like what goes into that process?
Yeah, so I'm first and foremost, I don't really consider myself a DJ. I'm just an artist. I'm just a guy that likes to make bass music. DJing is just kind of like an ends to a mean. I know that might seem kind of sacrilegious to a lot of hardcore DJs out there, but um, I can't physically play my music live. I have to DJ it. And there's nothing wrong with DJing. I enjoy it. It's fun, but I don't consider myself one really. So for me to go up and play a show, I don't want to go up as a DJ because I don't consider myself one. And as an artist, I want to showcase and flex my artistic abilities and skills, right? And especially after I've been doing this for so long, it's like, how can I go up and put on something cool that like no one's ever seen before? And so a lot of that goes into thinking about like building my sets. Like number one are the intros. I try to do something special for every single show. So every single show, I try to have some type of original intro, and that'll either be some sort of like maybe a remix of a famous artist track with my spin on it, or it's like something completely original that I'm like referencing the name of the place that I'm playing at. So, for example, I'm going to be playing at Paracosm on June 26th. So, in my intro, I will reference Paracosm, and that's just a shout out to the people that booked me, kind of like a little thank you, a little nod, a little tip of the hat. But it's also kind of a reinforcement to the audience because they don't know who I am, they don't know what I'm about. So if I go up there and I start my intros and it has like crazy sound design and it has my like robot voice that I do, and then I'm like referencing certain things or whatever, it kind of reinforces to the audience listening that, oh, this is a producer, this is something that's going to be unique, and this is going to be fun.
I absolutely understand where you're coming from with the producer not DJ mindset, right? I hesitate to call it 10 years of experience, right? Because it was very it lacked direction for the first 7 years, but it's like I have 10 years behind a DAW, right? I've only been DJing for the last year or so, and I also see it as a means to an end, right? It's like, unfortunately, with the state of things, the state of music, it's hard to get personal productions the kind of like the airtime they need to be properly recognized without having some form of live performance where people can become a part of it, right? And so I sympathize very heavily with this idea of like, I guess I'll be a DJ so that way I have an opportunity to show my original work. And I like especially the dedication that goes into really giving each show a unique spin, right? It's like I would say like I love REZZ deeply. I'm a big fan of her work, but I have also seen her play the exact same set multiple times while on tour. And I get it, like when you are like 6 figures in on the visual production for a set, it makes sense to want to try and get as much mileage as you can out of that. There's no respect to the space mom, the queen, but for the record, I think that like while you have the time, the extra effort you put into like acknowledging the audience with letting them know who you are and giving a nod to the venue is like, it shows a level of respect that you give towards the performance. It's very, very involved.
Exactly.
If we could go forward from there, or I guess backwards, right? It's like, how would you credit YouTube as being the majority of your education, or did you have like higher education that played a role in getting you to this point of having this technical knowledge to flex?
YouTube definitely was a big part of it for sure. YouTube University, but I felt that YouTube really only got me so far, and I ended up getting an opportunity to go to Icon Collective, and when I went there, it was such a game changer for me. I met really dope producers, and I got really great actionable feedback, got really high level critiques of my music. I had people sit down with me and tell me why my music sucked, but how I can make it better. I had people show me just crazy stuff that you typically won't find on YouTube, or rather, you may not find it because you don't even know what to search for, because you just don't know it. And so Icon Collective, it was very hard, but if I had to do that again, I totally would in a heartbeat. It was such a great experience, and I really feel like they helped me in many ways, many aspects, and yeah, um, I always tell people, like, uh, when a lot of new producers come and ask me, like, how do I get to like a certain level, or like what can I do, it's like I always tell them, like, you have to seek some sort of mentorship. Now, whether that's finding someone in your niche or in your genre and paying them, or finding some sort of music production school, but I absolutely um, really highly recommend to find some sort of mentorship.
Maybe so I want to say, to your credit, absolutely, I think mentorship is a game changer, right? I was just very aimlessly noodling in Ableton for the first several years, pulling what I could off of YouTube tutorials until I had a friend, shout out Kevin Mu Array if you guys are into ambient music, really sit down with me over a long series of sessions and show me sound design inside and out. That was like my first time dipping my toes into like not making sounds, but understanding what I was doing while making them, right? And that kind of tipped me off that there was maybe like a whole lot I didn't know that I didn't know that I didn't know, right? And I think that's the big gap in education is like when you talked about, it struck me when you said that you didn't know what to search for, or that you learned things that you didn't know that you should be asking about. That's where I think the big deal with mentorship and higher education in music comes in, is that they will do what you asked for, right? They will give you the education, and they will also give you education past that and tell you what you should have been asking about but didn't know to. So I guess what I want to kind of segue into is like, what is Icon Collective? How did you find it? And what are they about exactly?
Yeah, so Icon Collective, for those that don't know, is one of the top music production colleges in the United States. They specifically just teach mostly electronic dance music. They cover a wide range, though, like music theory, songwriting, vocal coaching, things like that. They really um, have the means to make you a really well rounded and very polished producer. But people like Black Gummy Company, I want to say Alley Cat, Bonnie and Clyde, Jaws, IO, have all gone there. They all went and graduated, and they're all playing at like EDC and crazy festivals all over. Um, but yeah, it was a really great experience, and how I discovered it actually was I there's a school here in Salt Lake City, and I don't want to name the school, but I actually went there first, and that was my introduction into music. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what Ableton was, and all I heard from this school was that we're exactly like Icon. That we teach the same stuff like Icon, and yada yada. And I was like, what the heck is Icon? And I had to look it up, and there was a bunch of talk from um, other students that were in the same class with me, and they were kind of hyping up Icon like it was some, kind of like mystifying it in a way. And after I finished with that school here in Salt Lake, I still felt like I needed to learn more. I still felt like I was not getting better, or I wasn't getting the right mentorship after the fact. And I felt very, I guess, stagnant, like I had plateaued as a music producer. Um, and that was up until I got to Icon. And getting into Icon definitely changed my life. That was definitely like a holy crap moment. Like, to just get accepted into that school was, I couldn't believe it was real. But having actually gone there, I can safely say that Icon is nothing like that local school here, uh, like at all. So
So in other words, you find an educational experience that doesn't quite serve the purpose that you were looking for, and while there, you hear word of this school that maybe does the job a little bit more succinctly, right? So you talk about acceptance. What does that look like for Icon? Did you submit an application saying like, here's my info, here's my music, and they assess whether or not you are qualified to be an attendee of the school?
essentially, yeah, it's kind of a lengthy process, but if I remember correctly, you have to fill out a form, obviously, and like all your information, and then I believe they asked for like a recent track, if I remember correctly, just so that they can kind of gauge where you're at in terms of music production. Um, and then let's see, then they had a interview. So the interview was online, and the interview was kind of interesting. They were definitely asking me some questions that um, I would say that they were trying to test me, because for those that don't know, Icon, they actually reject 66% of the people that apply, and then of the people that actually are able to attend the school, 50% of those people end up dropping out. And so I knew that going into this like interview with with this guy. And basically they were kind of testing to see if I have what it takes to be like an artist, right? And so they were asking me questions, not that it was like inappropriate, but it was definitely to get me out of my comfort zone and to kind of gauge like how I react to it. And like, looking back, I can see why they do it. But they basically want to make sure that you're not just trying to, chase clout. They want to make sure that you are legitimately wanting to be an artist for the sake of your love for music, and you're not, just trying to get rich, or, get your name on some banner.
So they almost put you through like a gauntlet of verifying the call it like the unrealized authenticity of your musical potential, which I kind of appreciate that, right? It's like for example, like I have lengthy background in teaching guitar, right? And it's like I had about 50-50 students who were dedicated, they loved the music, and the other 50% whose parents were like, okay, you need to learn an instrument, and they're like, shoot, I guess I'll do guitar. And it was like a clear night and day difference between the ones who like it meant something to them, it was like they were attached, they were emotionally involved, versus the ones who showed up to check a box on behalf of like whatever obligations they had to meet in their household. And it's like I enjoyed working with the ones who were dedicated, and working with like if I had had the option, right, I would have loved to screen for interest before taking on clients. So I can understand why Icon would be choosy about it. Why do you think that you passed the applications? Like, just got a chance to like uh, uh, scratch your own back, I guess. Like, sing your praises. Like, what? Why do you think that they picked you?
Because I cried. No, for real though, he asked me something quite personal, and I was like, holy crap. And again, that was, I think, a metric to gauge, because Icon, like their entire course, like what they're about is their ideology rather is for you to be an artist, a successful artist, you have to be vulnerable, and you have to like really put yourself out there, right? So like, as a music artist, you know, you have to be comfortable singing in front of people. You have to be comfortable singing really potentially painful lyrics, or like write stuff that, and share it with the world, like things that you probably would not have otherwise shared or want to showcase, right? And so he asked me something personal, and I was like, fuck. And I was just honest with him, and I started to tear up, and he was like, he was like, it's okay, man. Like, it's all good. But I was like, shit, but I think, not that I'm saying you should cry if you want to go to Icon. I'm not saying you have to cry, but what I'm saying is, like, I think the fact that I was willing to just have a moment of vulnerability with the guy, I think he was like, okay, like, I think you're good.
So a moment of vulnerability sealed the deal, and I love that. That's such a unique experience to the musical education process, right? I think people get this impression that it's just like, like book learning, but it's like it's a little bit more than that, right? It's like it's an art, and I feel like to divorce art from the emotional investment is to create very hollow art that is just something to, like you said, chase clout, like get on a Spotify playlist, mimic what successful artists are doing, and it lacks the authenticity that I feel like is crucial for music that withstands the test of time, that continues to be quality long after the trend is over. So yeah, honestly, thanks for sharing that with me. It's like I
Yeah.
as somebody who has made a habit of being overly vulnerable on the internet, I feel like that has worked very heavily in my favor, because I have disdain for the level of dishonesty on the internet, right? It's like we're out here to present this best version of ourselves, but it feels fake, it feels ingenuine, and I really have grown to love social media platforms that people migrate a little bit more towards being authentic, being honest, showing the ugly truth, rather than seeing like a polished fake version of people sitting in Cabo acting like everything goes well for them all the time, right? It's like we don't necessarily want to see you suffer, but we want to see the struggle behind the art, as opposed to just like, hey, this was smooth sailing. I cut this track in my sleep and now I'm a millionaire. Um, the let's kind of wheel around a little bit, right? So I guess you went to Icon, and it sounds like that was a really paramount experience for you in transitioning from like a pre-artist to, okay, now I'm an established artist. Do you feel like Icon has a support system for you after completing their coursework, where they are continuing to be involved in your artist career?
They definitely have some sort of program set up. I have personally not, or rather, they have not personally reached out to me, at least not yet. Um, but they do have things like artist Q&As, where they've had artists that used to be students. Like, for example, there's an artist called Something Something who went to Icon. He came in and he did like a Q&A kind of showcase thing. Um, I don't think that they sponsor any artists or anything like that, other than they just have really talented alumni. But yeah, as far as I know, they don't really do much after the fact. I know they reached out to me just as like a graduation follow up, just to see if like I had gotten any jobs, or um, anything interesting happened after the fact. But other than that, not really.
Sure. This isn't absolutely not intended to be a dig in terms of like, oh, did they hold your hand through the self actualization process after you completed? Mostly just out of curiosity, right? It's like for example, I went and got a biochemistry degree from Utah Valley University. Every once in a while, they'll reach out to the alumni and say, hey, we're doing events. I'm obviously in a completely different career now, so I'm just mostly call it a morbid curiosity to see how they follow up with their graduates. But so going from there, then, if once you complete your education, where did you begin to start seeing opportunities to perform and have your music heard in real life? Like, how did you transition from being a graduate to playing shows as Anomaly?
Yeah, so I am involved with a local DJ collective here in Salt Lake City. It's called the Electronic Continuum. They're like an event company, so they have their own sound system, they have their own DJ decks, they have a bunch of lights and fog machines and all that fun stuff. And I just knew a guy who knew a guy who was involved with them, and I just kind of showed up one day and started helping out, and they, really appreciated um, that, and they kind of slowly started putting me on. I had to go through, their crucible as well, which is, you have to open for nobody for a while, um, and then they started getting bigger and better shows like. For example, the one coming up, Echo in the Pines, which is going to be at some national forest park. So we're going to be raving in the forest. We did another one last year called the Electronic Powwow, which was at an Ogden Memorial Park, I think. I forgot the name of it, but um, and then because of them being kind of plugged into the local scene here, like I've gotten noticed by people in, excuse me, gotten noticed by other collectives like Defiance, for example. I've gotten plugged into people with Black Void, been plugged in with people at Mutiny. I haven't played any shows with those guys yet, but um, just by kind of showing up and being in the scene, and obviously having like some of my music being heard and people know like what's up about me, they um, it kind of comes with some respect, I think. Whereas like before, they probably wouldn't give you the time of day, but they know that you're a dope producer or whatever, and all of a sudden they want to fuck with you and um, kind of want you in their circle more or less, or at least they'll keep a tab on you until the time is right for them to get you on to show some music.
I think, yeah, you highlighted something really important to the process that I think is the most important message to get across to anybody who's listening and wondering how to bridge that gap between making the music and getting opportunities to perform it, right? So like if I can have my own vulnerable moment for a second, I got in a spot of major legal trouble in 2021 that just about leveled me, right? Like it brought my confidence down to like below floor level, and like I had to basically like rebuild my life from scratch, right? So during this time with which I was away from like the public eye, I spent a lot of time on the internet and a lot of lonely hours at my laptop making music, right? And at that point, I started to spend a lot of time cultivating my online persona and presence on the internet. So that way I could mostly just like have a community in which I felt accepted in, again, right? But I want to say for the record that like online presence doesn't immediately translate to opportunities. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of forget is that like you might have this like stellar Instagram page or like put out content that does successfully doesn't necessarily secure you a headliner spot at Coachella. You feel me? So like as a follow-up to that, like I didn't really begin to be involved until I actually attended one of these networking sessions thrown by Electronic Continuum. Shout out Artist Invitational. I'm a big fan. Once I did that, I met people in real life who brought me into these events, right? I ended up on the Black Void stage crew, and after showing up and working for them for X amount of time, they put me on stage. And it was just exactly like you mapped out, right? It's like it's not enough just to be talented. It's not enough to have an online following. You have to appear in person, show up, be willing to do work for these companies until eventually someone says, "Hey, I've been seeing your face on a weekly basis for months on end. Why don't you play for us?" And I think like I think I honestly said the whole piece right there. That for me was such a transformative experience to kind of like almost start from zero again, but in real life this time, and have to slowly build up, the in-person connections as opposed to the online ones as well. What do you think, aside from showing up, made the most difference in helping you to connect with these organizations that put you on stage?
Um, well, one thing that I found success in was there's a song that these two artists, it's Bataya and Spinelli. Shout out to both of them. They had a song together, and just kind of like a shot in the dark, I asked them if I could remix the track, and I honestly thought that they'd probably ignore me or whatever. But Bataya, he's a good dude, and he was like, "Yeah, absolutely," and he sent me the stems and everything, and I remixed the track, sent it back to him, and they both really really liked it, and then because of that, they showed it to Defiance because they're plugged in with them, and then now I'm not like in Defiance's inner circle or anything, but I feel like I'm definitely on their radar, and I'm pretty decent friends with Jack Mormon, who's another local DJ out here, and he's a big part of Defiance. And so yeah, it was just kind of one of those things where it's like just showcase your skills, and let the people listen to it, kind of a thing. If you build it, they will come, more or less. But yeah, it's just getting yourself out there, and then going to like certain events and like playing your music, and people come up to you and go, "Yo, like that was sick." Or a lot of the times, people come up to me and said, "You had a sick set," and I'm like, "Thank you. A lot of that was my own music," and they're like, "Oh no shit! Like I didn't know that." And now all of a sudden, I see him at an event or something on some weekend, and they'll come up and they'll say what's up to me. So again, it's like you kind of go from being a nobody, and then all of a sudden you're the cool kid on the block because you can make a track and people listened to it and thought it was sick or whatever. But um, yeah, other than that, I think the best way to do it is just to show up, definitely network, meet people, and just keep making music and keep putting it out there.
Perfect. I think that accurately kind of identifies what I felt happened to me personally as well, right? Like, so I feel like showing up is crucial. That's where things begin, right? But you get unique opportunities through showing up to demonstrate a value that is specific to you, right? Like in your case, production. So you form the connections and then get an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of something that maybe nobody else could pull off quite like you do, and that the combination of those two elements is what sets you apart and tees you up for the opportunities that you get. So honestly, yeah, thank you for breaking that down, because I feel like it's been a long time since I talked to somebody whose experience so closely mimicked mine in that regard, that I think it really resonates with me a little bit. I want to kind of transition here into another element that I picked up on that you do, which was like music production tutoring, right? So I have attended one of Mark's classes, and guy obviously knows his shit really well. I was impressed. How did you find yourself doing tutoring? Like, what's your process for getting clients? How do you bring that service and knowledge of that service to people in your network?
Yeah, so number one is I've always kind of wanted to teach. I have a lot of fun doing it. And my friend Zach, he goes by Zebra. Again, another fantastic producer, local here in Salt Lake, and amazing DJ. So shout out Zebra. He started doing something called the Artist Invitational, where he's just trying to build like community build and get other producers together and kind of get us all out of our bedrooms and into one room so we could all meet and network. And that kind of gave me the motivation to like teach, right? And so obviously I didn't really have any clientele or really even know how to go about building one specifically. Um, but I really like the idea of getting some sort of community together and in a way kind of give back. So I started something called the production workshop, and it's like a once a month thing that I host over Zoom. And we cover a wide variety of topics, sound design, mixing, mastering, bass arrangements. We're going to do music theory next month. And it's a completely free session. All you got to do is click the link in my bio on Instagram, and it takes you right there to a little form you fill out. It has all the information to attend the meeting. And so far, it's slowly starting to build. It definitely doesn't have as many people as, say, the Artist Invitational, but I kind of like that because it's very, at its core, I think, is for people that really, really want to learn. And again, that kind of gives me an opportunity to showcase my teaching abilities and showcase my own music as like a little plug to myself. Um, and so far, that has also started to slowly translate into one-on-one sessions, because now I have people who hit me up over Instagram asking if I do one-on-ones, which I do. And so far, I've gotten like I want to say 5 or 6 students that have kind of like teetered in and teetered out, but it's been relatively consistent around like 4 to 6 students every couple weeks or so. And I'm hoping that stays consistent. I'm hoping that actually increases. I have some ideas on how I want to further branch out and help myself grow. And but yeah, the production workshop I think is where all the credits at. That's really helped me. And again, because it helps give back to the producer community, everyone really, really likes that I do it, because I don't think anyone else in Salt Lake is doing anything like that. And if they are, they're probably charging a lot of money for you to attend it. So yeah, it's just something I like to do, and I have fun doing it. So
I love it. It's very much geared in this concept of like you have to give to receive, but also like with no obligation to receive, right? Like giving freely, I've noticed like some of the most successful people that I've networked with are some of the most generous people that I've encountered, right? They give with no expectation, and I feel like like businesses and like marketing tactics will call that demonstrating value, but at its core it's just like like a desire to like want to help, and especially like kind of pay it forward in terms of like people who maybe helped you get established, right? In regards to like the way you advertise for that sort of thing, I think it tracks and is very consistent, right? Like I hate to consistently relate everything back to my experience, but that's where I come from. When I was teaching guitar, I had an opportunity to advertise in a local magazine in my area. I was in Utah County. I had an ad in Shop Utah magazine, and like these parents would see my ad and they would call in and arrange for their students to come in and get lessons, right? So I think to tie in your workshop to some kind of event that has people showing up in person absolutely pays off. It's like you can buy Instagram ads and all manner of like social media advertising, right? But nothing quite beats seeing you in person, showing up to an event, hearing your song play out and be like, holy shit, did you hear what that guy did? And then you also being there present in the crowd, like, hey, by the way, I can show you how to do that. FYI. So I think you are on the right track here, just because the way that you have attracted people to this event, to this session, this service that you offer by using this in-person event as a jumping off point really, really helps like connect the dots, and it becomes less of this like huckster, oh, hey, buy my secret sauce course and we'll show you everything you need to know, to like it turns it personal. You know what I feel like quality teaching is like intimate on some level, right? It's like you get to know people, if not intensely personally, then you get to know how their brains work, like and what is the best like strategies to employ to teach them, to help them achieve what they want to do better. And like I feel like that kind of impact, we as teachers kind of underestimate how much of an impact we have on our students, right? I have had a lot of ex guitar students of mine stay in touch and like reach out about like career opportunities, and like get in touch just in a friendly way as adults later on. It's interesting to have played a role like that in someone's life, even if it sounds like a little bit of like self-obsessed talking yourself up. It's okay to be proud of the work that you did with somebody, right? So this is going to feel like a little bit out of order to me, but one thing I was really interested in about your productions is like when you conceive of a track nowadays, like in the current state of Anomaly, what does your start to finish process look like, and what are some tactics that you feel comfortable sharing from your arsenal, like that you think are mainstays of what makes an Anomaly track?
yeah, so I guess I don't know, my start to finish process, I don't know if I necessarily have like I don't know, set routine or like a tried and true method. Honestly, I try to produce every single day, and whatever that is varies, right? It could just be like I have a melody in my head and I just have to figure out like the melody and get it like onto paper, if you will. Um, or it's like, oh, I feel like making some like ambient, like ominous, atmospheric kind of thing. And, maybe that'll spark an idea and that'll lead to something. Or maybe I have an idea for a drop and I'll just work specifically on the drop. And honestly, a lot of the times, probably like 90% of the times, it honestly doesn't go anywhere. It ends up in my graveyard of music. Other times it'll be I'll write a drop, and it's not that I can't finish like or flush out a full track. It's just more like I don't have any inspiration any further than just to make this drop. And then it just becomes some DJ ammo, right? And then I can just make a little build up with some risers, and then I have something new and fresh to play at my next show. Oftentimes, though, what I've noticed that gives me the most I can't talk, success in fleshing out a track from start to finish is to have some sort of story or theme in mind, right? Um, if I'm writing it, if I'm writing something and something happens where I get this like cool idea or whatever, then I get really, really excited, and then I'm more inclined to actually sit down, spend the time, and really flush it out. Um, a really great example is this track that I made called Blue Beam. And it kind of reminds me, or the intro at least, kind of reminds me of like the 1950s aliens, almost like a theremin. It's not a theremin, but that woo kind of thing. Basically, I got the idea for aliens, and I found some sample that I was able to turn into a synth that sounded like something from 1950, and I got really excited about that. And so then I was able to flesh out the track, right? And then um, my most recent track that I just released, it's called Neon Ghost. I wrote the drop, and I didn't know what to do with it after I finished the drop. And I was like, well, I need to at least have an intro so that if I don't finish the track, I can at least play it live, right? And I ended up writing this melody, and for some reason I kept hearing like a police siren in the background. So then I found a siren, added that, and then all of a sudden I was like, this sounds like synthwave. And I've never done a synthwave track before. So I was like, let's flush that out. Like there's an idea, there's a story. So then I found some synthwave stuff and then turned it into that. And then because I made that, that gave me an idea for like a bridge. And I was able to add other elements just because of like some random idea I had, like just popped into my head. Oh, synthwave. And then that, like I said, was able to take and turn it into a full length track. And so that's kind of my process, I think, with most tracks. But I think that at the core of what I'm trying to say is it helps me if I have some sort of story or theme to the track.
Oh, I would definitely agree with that. I like to kind of immerse myself in the atmosphere of the idea that I'm creating and just see if I can tune in, tap into that flow state, right? Like I feel like some of my best work happened in like a single 6 hour session as opposed to like structured, oh, I'm going to spend an hour producing each day. And the reason I asked that question is because I get about 50-50. I interview a lot of lo-fi guys on this show. Some of them have their track production down to a science, right? They're like, I start with the drums, then I do this, then I record this, right? The other 50% of it are like, how can you put a series of rules and guidelines on something so ambiguous as making a piece of art? So it's like it's nice to hear that like somebody who also has like a more I hesitate to call it disorganized. My workflow is very disorganized, right? But I like to hear about quality music coming from kind of just seeing what comes to you out of the ether as opposed to following a set of rules to get an end product. It feels a little bit more human and less mass produced, but that's not to dig people who have their music production down to a science either. Like I'm sure both lead to quality work, but more just like multiple ways to skin a cat. You feel me?
Exactly.
Um, with so I guess peeking under the hood a little bit, if anyone were trying to accumulate the tools they needed to make killer bass music, is there anything that you couldn't live without in your productions? Like what does a person absolutely need in their toolkit to make this music?
To absolutely make this music, you need to have at least Serum or Serum 2, some sort of noise generating synthesizer that can make heavy bass music. I know there's a lot of dope producers out there that actually don't use Serum, but Serum's definitely a great starting off point, and it's also very user friendly. Another thing in my arsenal is Contact by Native Instruments, and I have a couple really fantastic Contact synthesizers. They're very cinematic, very gorgeous sounds, very huge, and just something that you would hear out of like a Hans Zimmer production or something. And other tools just like Infiltrator and anything that's going to mangle or twist the sound in interesting ways.
Cool. Thanks for the sneak peek. I hoard plugins, so I will definitely be looking into some of these. But I want to say for the record, absolutely, Serum and Serum 2 have my endorsement. Right. I love. I came from Native Instruments Massive, which I think was like the OG back in like the 20 teens, and to see them bring my favorite elements of Native Instruments Massive into Serum 2 was like a eureka moment for me. Like being able to work two filters and go back and forth between them. I'm very excited, as I'm sure many people are right now, about the new functions on Serum 2. I will curb the nerd speak a little bit because this has been such a great and informative interview. I want to kind of drive things to a close here right now. So if I can ask you a bunch of questions that are going to seem kind of disjointed, what's the future of Anomaly? What are you doing next? What are you doing to perpetuate the brand? And as a follow up, actually, let's start right there. Where do you see this going for you?
I'm definitely more interested in producing, I think, weirder music, heavier stuff. But I definitely want to dabble in more hypnotic. It'll still probably be like mid-tempo stuff, but definitely more hypnotic. Not necessarily something like REZZ, because I don't want to be a REZZ clone or anything. But that's just where I personally, like what I like to listen to or what I like to hear at raves. So if I could just create something and go and play it and have it like warp someone's mind in the crowd, then I think I'd be pretty accomplished in that. But I definitely have some ideas, at least for the Anomaly theme, like the Android Anomaly or whatever. I have a new variation of Mask that's going to be coming out soon. I don't know when, I don't really have a date, but we're going to call that the Mark III. And yeah, so that'll be cool. And yeah, I'm hoping to play and work my way all the way up to the stage of EDC at Circuit Grounds. That's my end game. If I can make it there, I think I can die happy.
Love it. We got goals and we got a means to get there. I am confident with the talent that I've seen on your end behind Ableton, and like some of the attention to detail and depth and cultivation of specific sound. I'm confident that you have what it takes to get there. I want to kind of leave off on a positive note. First off, where can people find you? Where can people listen to your music? How can they get in touch and get involved with some of the workshops that you do? You mentioned you had a link in the bio for the workshops, but how do you prefer people connect with you online?
Yeah, the absolute best way of getting in contact with me would probably be on Instagram. So on my Instagram handle, it is the Anomaly Official, and I try to respond to any comments and every message I get. So feel free, if you have any questions, to reach out to me there. I also have a link tree with a bunch of different links. That'll take you to my Spotify, my YouTube, and my SoundCloud. And all my tracks are pretty much available on every streaming platform, except for Apple Music. That's a different story. And my production workshop, again, is also there in the link. And yeah, you just click it, takes you to a little form. And also, I do try to post regularly, at least when I have a production workshop coming up. I do try to make a custom reel for each one that's like unique to whatever the topic is. So if you follow me, you'll definitely see the reels, and you can see my stories. I'll typically post on there. But yeah, as far as my music goes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and all the other stuff that's out there in the ether.
Beauty. I'm excited to look you up and do a deep dive into some of the world building. Mark, if you could leave people off with like a single piece of advice to kind of just help them get through the tough days. Music is a grind, and like I feel like a lot of us get burnt out and want to give up. Sometimes it's like what keeps you going, and what would you suggest to people who are experiencing hardship in getting established?
I'd probably ask yourself, why are you doing it in the first place, right? Again, if your answer is because you want to get famous, or you want to chase clout, or you want to see your name in some empty banner at some event, you're probably not in it for the right reasons. I would definitely have you remind yourself on why you started in the first place. For me, I love being creative, and I feel like if I'm not being creative, I get depressed. So music is a really great outlet for me in that regard. And I think even if no one listened to my music, I would still make music and I would still put it out there. So um, yeah, if you're going through it, just keep going. You know, things will get better for sure. But also for me, I can't speak for everyone, but anytime I finish a track, I always feel extremely accomplished. I feel like I can do something, I can put my mind to it and I can accomplish, whatever I set out to do. So that's what I would say. And also just be a genuine person, be real, be, nice. You see another producer struggling, don't gatekeep, help, reach out, let them know it's all good, and, be part of the community.
Love it. Get involved, produce for your own satisfaction, not like worldly payoffs. Be authentic. What a positive note to end on. Thank you for an incredible interview, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. It has been lovely having you. I am excited to see where you go from here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
And break.